What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phils dropped their series ended to the Padres, but I'm going to let you know why this was still a very successful series and why I'm not worried about today's game at all. There's weird circumstances surrounding it, well, one in particular. So what is that? Find out in today's episode. Also, we'll recap the week so far for the Phils and how they're looking as they continue on this slog of a 162-game schedule. And we have to talk about the passing of the great Willie Mays. We'll give some love to the Say Hey Kid as well on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. Very much appreciate anyone who's done that already and everyone who's going to do that in the future. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. That's our title sponsor for today. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, all in lowercase, Locked on MLB for our first deposit match up to $100. So first and foremost, if you keep up with us regularly, I just got back off vacation. I tried to let you know last week that I was going on vacation to the Outer Banks, my brother's bachelor party. So you know how it goes. Family got stuff you got to do. I had a great time, but we've been not having a chance to post updated episodes. Just haven't had the time. So we've got some things to catch up on. The first thing we're going to talk about, though, is today's afternoon game. I was actually in attendance. My goodness, if you were at that game today, you deserve a Medal of Honor on behalf of the Baseball Fan Association. It was so hot out there. This was the first, really hot day game of the year that the Philadelphia Phillies have played at home, and it was sweltering. I love the heat. And I had trouble sitting out there for all 9 innings. I don't think that there were many people in the ballpark that did that without going up to get a beverage in the shade or whatever. So already pretty hot, maybe not the most comfortable conditions. I think the ideal conditions for a game are around 75 to 80 degrees. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. And the Phillies had a chance to sweep, so it can't be an excuse. I don't think they were going out there saying, it's too hot to sweep the Padres. No, they wanted to win 3 of 3 against San Diego after taking the first 2 games. And you have Ranger Suarez on the mound, and you feel like you have a great opportunity there. And Ranger Suarez was actually pretty darn good in this game. He gave up a run early on a home run, and you don't really see that very often from Ranger. But what you do see very often from Ranger is what happened next in this game, which is where he bounced back and settled in great. This is why, for my money, he is the best pitcher on this roster. I know Zach Wheeler's outstanding, but I'm taking Ranger Suarez still to this day if I have an elimination game, just because I don't know. I feel like eye test-wise, he's the best pitcher. But 6 innings, 6 hits, not his best day. 1 earned on that, okay, he scattered them. And he had 4 strikeouts, no walks. So that's back to the normal thing. Really, the only earned run he gave up, that home run, he just kind of got the pitch count up because the 6 hits and working around some trouble and everything like that. A couple of foul balls got him higher up on the pitch count. I think end of the day, when Ranger Suarez walked out after 6 innings worth of work, he had done everything he needed to do to win that ball game for the Philadelphia Phillies. The problem was the bullpen once again did not hold up their end of the bargain. Orion Kirkring gave up an earned run in his 1 inning of work in the 7th. Seranthony Dominguez only pitched 1/3 of an inning. He gave up 3 runs. None of them earned, but 3 runs. And you look at that and say, I thought he was coming out of it. I really did. I thought Seranthony Dominguez had finally cleared the other side and we could have confidence in him again. That's the problem with this. Baseball is such a humbling sport that when you have guys that are trying to work back from something, if I was a Padres fan or a fan of any other team in baseball, and I looked at Seranthony Dominguez's numbers by appearance and looked at what he's done over the past couple of weeks, there would be no doubt in saying, oh, he's working out of the weird funk he was in earlier. But as a Phillies fan, watching him go 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it's infuriating because you know he can be better than this. It's not all on Seranthony Dominguez. The offense was quiet today as well. We'll talk about that. But Gregory Soto comes in and works out of the jam there. And then Jose Ruiz allows 1 hit in the 9th inning in the top of the 9th, but does not allow a run. So really it's on Dominguez and Kirkring for not getting the job done out of the pen. The Phillies would have won the game 2-1 because the upside of the game, outside of Ranger Suarez's tremendous effort, it's crazy not to lead with this, but it's also crazy it happened in the way that it did. Bryce Harper hit 2 home runs in this game. Like, I don't know why the San Diego Padres would ever pitch to Bryce Harper again for the history of their franchise. I don't care if Bryce Harper's playing in Philly or in like a divisional rival city to the Padres. I don't care if it's interleague play. I don't care if there's a new settlement on Mars and Bryce Harper becomes the draft pick for that team because they get some expansion draft. Like, whatever happens for the rest of Bryce Harper's life, the San Diego Padres should not throw a single other competitive pitch to him because he kills them. You think they would have learned from Bedlam at the bank. Harper's looked really, really good lately. And he now is tied for the team lead in home runs with Kyle Schwarber, who, of course, he's been really, really good lately. The past week or so has really heated up his June. So there are guys that are coming together on the offense. And Bryce Harper, as much as I should spend more time talking about a Bryce Harper 2 home run game, you lose 5-2. It's your only 2 runs. You only have 6 hits in the game. It's hard to really focus on that as a calling card for today's contest. So it was more just this individual player is really good, and your team didn't play that well today. And that's fine. Here's why that's fine. And I actually mean that's fine. Because Matt Waldron was chucking a knuckleball today that I don't think any of these Phillies batters had any idea what to do with, outside of maybe Bryce Harper. Maybe Bryson Stott, too. Did Stott go today? I'm going to try and remember. No, Stott was only 1 for 4. I'm thinking of somebody. No, yeah, Stott was 1 for 4. The Bone was 1 for 3. Castellanos 1 for 4. Sosa 1 for 4. And then Harper with the 2 home runs. Those are the only players with hits in the lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies today. Trey Turner a day off as he continues to recover. He's back playing, but he needed that day off to kind of just keep his legs underneath him. I don't know, man. When I see a knuckleballer out there, and also a questionable strike zone from the home plate umpire, that was very noticeable from fan reaction in the ballpark, it's going to be a tough day at the plate, especially if you're not used to what a knuckleballer is. It's not like Tim Wakefield, RIP, was in this division facing this team for 5 years prior to this, and they see a knuckleballer 3 times a year, 2 times a year, something like that every year. It's not that these guys are common. It's not that you play the Padres a lot. There's a chance, a pretty good chance. I'm sure there will be some research done into this after today's performance where they were 6 hit and only scored 2 runs, and both those came on Bryce Harper bombs, where people look at this and say, how many players on the Philadelphia Phillies roster have ever faced a major leaguer or a professional player, even in the minor leagues, that throws a knuckleball? It's just that rare anymore. So if you can do it, you can get away with it. It's such an equalizer. Matt Waldron throws 92, maybe 91, 92, and he blows that by people because of the speed difference. Seeing that up close and personal today at the Yard, it's an unbelievable 2-pitch mix. And the Phillies had trouble with it. And the good thing for the Philadelphia Phillies is it's not as simple as saying, oh, this is how you attack them. That process isn't really repeatable. So for me, that's why I just kind of wiped this game away. I do. It sucks, but what helps with that is you've already won the series, so you don't have to look at this as okay, well, you lost the series because of it, and now Connor's trying to justify it. No, so you already won the series. You got what you planned on getting out of this 3-game set against the Padres at home. So that makes it easier to swallow that you lost today's game. You got a great pitching outing from Rangers, so it's not like you lost the game because your pitcher wasn't good and you have questions about that. The guys that struggled in the pen, I don't even know that I'd say Kerkering struggled. He just got unlucky. He faced Luis Ariz with 2 outs and gave up a hit. Ariz was the batting champion in the National League last year for a reason. Sir Anthony was bad. I don't think that's news to anybody who's a Philadelphia Phillies fan. So, you didn't learn anything new. You didn't see anything terrible about this team that we didn't already know about. They looked like they were still fighting and going to be in it until the Sir Anthony Dominguez inning. And I don't know, you can wipe off the knuckleball part really, really easily if you believe it like I do, that that's just not a repeatable strategy. For the Braves are not going to just go out and trade at the deadline for somebody who can throw a knuckleball because they believe it is the Achilles heel to the Philadelphia Phillies lineup. It's not a viable strategy. It's not realistic. And it's one game that they lost. I'm over it, right? I think you should be too. And I think having nearly 50 wins puts the Philadelphia Phillies fan base into a good place to do that. When you still look at the overall standings in baseball, they're still the second best team in baseball record-wise. They are absolutely every bit as good as the Yankees are. The Yankees have a couple more wins because they played a couple more games because they didn't go to London. So simple enough, right? Coming up next, though, we've missed some stuff over the week, and I haven't really given my thoughts. And we're just kind of going to run through a couple topics. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of what I feel about some recent news for the Philadelphia Phillies. So if there's anything you were thinking, man, it sucks Connor went on vacation, then I would have loved to hear his take on that. We're going to get into it coming up as we continue today's episode. First, though, let's talk about eBay Motors. You absolutely got to check them out. They're awesome. If you want passion, drive, patience, all of that stuff in someone who supplies your automobile parts, well, that's the formula for winning championships. And that's why eBay Motors is the championship equivalent of the way to do this. They help you keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. You might like speed, power, Bryce Harper's got plenty, or style. eBay Motors has you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And they've got eBay Guaranteed Fit, which is exactly what it sounds like. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your vehicle alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I also want to tell you about Prize Picks. Now, they're awesome. And unfortunately, the Phillies have already played today, because if you had gone on to Prize Picks and you said Bryce Harper more than 0.5 home runs, which is probably what the line was on Prize Picks. I didn't get a chance because earlier game to look at the numbers for the Phillies today. He hits 2. That's a great spot to start. So what is Prize Picks? You might be saying, Connor, you haven't even let us know. You should know already. I mean, they're amazing. They are the number one fantasy sports app in America. They are. And they've got more than 5 million members. Chances are, if you have a handful of friends, one of them or multiple of them are using Prize Picks already. So join in. It's the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, like I was just telling you about with the Bryce Harper home runs. You can do a bunch of different things. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. It's quick, so if you don't have a lot of time like me, you can still do it no problem. You just need to pick that more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. And there's always action on Prize Picks. This is the perfect time to try out something new. As basketball has wound down, the Celtics are NBA champions, unfortunately. Make sure to try out esports this month. If you know anything about like esports, Overwatch, any of that, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, you can go ahead and check that out every Wednesday and Saturday in June. They really do have it all. So what do you need from Prize Picks to convince you to do this? I've already given you the reason why you should, but would you like an extra for $100? How about that? If you download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, and not only will you get a chance to do all of that great stuff to place your guesses on more or less, you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, let's talk about the things that we've kind of missed here on Locked On Phillies. There have been a lot of things going on for the Philadelphia Phillies over the past couple of days. I think the biggest thing that we'll start with is the news that Johan Rojas is going down. Now, tomorrow is an off day for the Philadelphia Phillies, so you have the opportunity to catch up on a couple of things housekeeping-wise, and this comes before an NLCS rematch against the Diamondbacks on Friday, which we're going to preview Friday morning. But tomorrow, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics. This is just kind of a rundown of where we've been, what's happened, in case you missed it, my quick thoughts. I'm going to need to say more about the Johan Rojas situation, but we'll start there. So Rojas gets sent down to AAA. People are up in arms because Marsh had come back and Turner had come back, and you had called up Rafael Marchand, to replace JT Realmuto. Garrett Stubbs moves into the starting catching role. A lot of moving parts here. And there's a very simple explanation for why Johan Rojas was the guy to go down. First of all, he wasn't like an all-star caliber player. I love Johan Rojas. He's not an immovable player. Be dumb to call him that at this point in the season. And I mean, as far as like not trading him, but like sending him down, exactly what the Phillies did, benching him, stuff like that. You're not winning games because of Johan Rojas. I don't think you're losing games because of Johan Rojas, but that kind of leaves him in the ether, and he has minor league options. You can send him down. No other team can claim him. He can spend time in AAA. You can call him back up when you need him. Other outfielders on the team don't have that. Castellanos doesn't have that. Dahl doesn't have that. Marsh doesn't have that. You can't send those guys. Pache doesn't have that. If you sent those guys down, they would not clear waivers. Somebody's going to pick them up. The Phillies are one of the top 2 teams in baseball. There are a lot of bad teams out there. So that was the right move as far as who they sent down and why. But we're going to talk on tomorrow's episode about why I don't know if the fan base is evaluating the reasons for this correctly. It's not just he had options. There's a lot more that goes into that decision that it's Johan Rojas that goes down and the timing and all of that. So we'll discuss that coming up. An update on the catcher position as Marchand and Stubbs are kind of battling for a little bit of fan favor. There's no doubt who the Philadelphia Phillies fan base wants to be the catcher of this team. Every single one of us with a brain cell to share, like, knows JT Realmuto is the best catcher on this team. That's not even a question. But now we're forced to get an extended look at Stubbs and Marchand. And Marchand got a little bit of a pop because he had a 4-hit night earlier in the series against the Padres. And Garrett Stubbs has not really created anything offensively to speak of at all. And then Marchand didn't create anything offensively to speak of today. It's very weird. Marchand has kind of become the anti-Stubbs, where people really like Stubbs' personality, but they don't want him to play because he's presumed as significantly lesser than JT Realmuto, even though I think we're overrating that. Marchand, nobody knows what his personality's like because he hasn't really been up with the Major League club all that much. Been in the minor leagues a bunch. Nobody knows really who this dude is as a person, but they see it and they say, oh, okay, the backup quarterback factor. We know we have issues with Garrett Stubbs' ability to produce, so Marchand's got to be better. And people are starting to love him just because of that. And you've got the Vibes crew versus the We Know Ball crew. And I don't think either of those are totally encompassing of that situation. Bottom line, here's what I'll say. They're going to pretty much, it seems, split time between now and when JT Realmuto returns. I'm fine with that. I don't think there's a distinct advantage one over the other. I think the only distinct advantage at catcher right now for this team would be JT Realmuto returning back. And it's going to take some time for that. So that it's all good. Speaking of returning back, Trey Turner made his return to play, and he's looked solid. He's been doing a lot of work keeping up his timing at the plate. He didn't want to do a rehab start. He hasn't done it in the past when he's been injured. He didn't do it here. The Philadelphia Phillies have been looking good since he came back. Honestly, you forget about how talented this team could be when they have everybody healthy. You really do, because Edmundo Sosa was so good for the Philadelphia Phillies. Today, Trey Turner got a day off. The reason being, I'd imagine, is because he has been working back from injury. He's had a lot of time not playing. They want to give him time to see how his body reacts to playing a couple games in a row. So I get that. I don't think it was a give-up lineup by Rob Thompson. I just think they're being cautious with him, which they're going to do with JT when he comes back. I really, really love having Trey Turner back on this team because I don't think we've properly evaluated how beneficial he is overall. I said before the season, there's a chance that this guy is the best player on the team. There's a chance that this guy has an MVP caliber season. There's a chance that this guy is in the conversation with players like Ohtani and Betts and Judge and Harper and Acuna and all of these guys that you know to be the top players in the National League. And unfortunately, he goes down. Now, so have a lot of those other guys. Aaron Judge hit by a pitch the other night. Mookie Betts, broken hand, out for like 6 weeks. Acuna tore his knee, done for the year. Like a bunch of those guys I just named have bigger injuries than what faced Trey Turner. But bottom line is, if you miss that guy, you're going to have more struggles. And Edmundo Sosa deserves so much credit for slowing those down a little bit, but he was also coming back down to earth. So this turns into an all-star caliber team again, where you're not just looking at like a give-up lineup from spots 7 to 9 every day. And you could carry some of those guys, but you can only survive that so long. It's great to see Trey Turner back. Any other take on, wow, it's awesome to have Trey Turner back and playing shortstop, I think is insane. And I also think that any take on switch these guys' positions, play Turner in center field, play Edmundo Sosa in the outfield, move around the infield. No, it's very simple. Turner plays short, Stott plays second, Harper plays first, Bohm plays third. Leave the infield as it is. Everyone else will get their time. If they don't, it's because these guys are playing well enough and they're healthy enough. That is the bottom line with that. Not too complicated of a situation. The one other thing is, what is the best answer in center field now that Rojas is out of the setup right now down in the minor leagues, AAA Lehigh? Well, that's something we'll discuss in deeper detail. Here's what I'll tell you. Seeing Brandon Marsh track a ball that he did in the first at bat of the game off Luis Ariza's bat against Ranger Suarez, Brandon Marsh has closing speed. He has instinct. He makes some boneheaded mistakes at points, and so did Rojas, and so does Pache. I think Pache is probably the better fielder, but there's no doubt that Brandon Marsh is the better offensive player out there, and that's why I think he should be your guy in center field with a slight platoon with Pache when you face left-handed pitchers. So there's a little catch-up on all the stuff that we kind of ran through and a couple of things that we missed over the days that I was not able to put out a couple episodes. Thank you for being understanding about that, by the way. I appreciate it. But coming up next, we got to talk about some big news from yesterday that I think you're going to hear a lot about over the next couple of days and weeks and maybe even months. One of the greatest baseball players in the history of the game, some say maybe the greatest, has passed away. We're going to talk about Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid, and just I'll give you my thoughts on, not that he needs me to explain his legacy, but my thoughts on what we should think about in this time. We'll talk about that coming up as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Though I want to talk to you first about Policy Genius, because Policy Genius is an awesome place for you to check out if you need insurance. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family a financial safety net to protect against some of the unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. So go ahead and check it out. I mean, how does it help you do this? Well, Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. You don't have to call this insurance company and that insurance company and that insurance company and compare all those numbers and try and figure it out. That's going to take a billion hours. Just let Policy Genius have it, handle it for you. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. So don't take the easy way out, necessarily. Find what works best for you with Policy Genius. You get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. So head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to this episode to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. I also want to talk to you about Tax Network USA. They are absolutely amazing with something else. We just talked about insurance with Policy Genius. Well, Tax Network USA wants to remind you, it's a long year, right? And it may feel like you get further away from tax time, but honestly, if you know better, all time is IRS collections time. Here on Locked On Phillies, we know that. We know that the latest news for your team with the Phillies, the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs is always relevant. And we know that collection season, it's year-round. So just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS is going to stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages. You don't want that. Levy your bank accounts. You definitely don't want that. And even seize your property. Come on. You really don't want any of that. So don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. They got over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. So go ahead and check it out. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below, and they'll be able to help you out by reaching out to our friends over at TaxNet. All right, let's end up with a conversation about it's never obviously fun, right? It's never easy, but there are some deaths of athletes that hit you harder than others. And while I never watched Willie Mays play, obviously, if you can look at how old I am or hear how old I am, how I talk about stuff, I'm 29 years old. But what I will tell you is he is the benchmark that I feel every outfielder and specifically center fielder in the history of baseball will ever be compared to. There will never be somebody else that's like okay, that is the gold standard. I don't think so, because there's been so much time. Like people talked about Ken Griffey Jr. like that. People talked about Mike Trout at his peak like that. People talk about every once or twice a generation, there's a guy that comes around that's amazing. Maybe a Hall of Famer, maybe a first ballot Hall of Famer, but they're not Willie Mays. They're not the say hey kid. They're not going to make that over-the-shoulder basket catch in the World Series. They are not the greatest center fielder to ever play the game. That belongs to one man, and unfortunately, that man passed away yesterday. And he lived a long life. Of course, the fact that he's still around may have some people saying, wow, I didn't even know Willie Mays was still out there. And it sucks to see a legend of the game go. But it also gives you a chance to think about their legacy and what they brought to the game and the stories that you hear from players of this generation, players of the generation that I watched when I was growing up that may have grown up watching or had just missed Willie Mays by a generation. Like, we're not that far removed from people who saw him play. There are people alive today, obviously, that saw him play. He's still alive himself. So learn from this and talk to people. If you know anyone who watched Willie Mays play, this would be a great time to ask some of your older baseball fan relatives or friends, family, whatever, about what Willie Mays meant to them. Because if you saw this dude ever play a baseball game, ever seen a highlight, ever read a story, you know there's very few people around the sport that he didn't leave an impact on. And it also signifies a changing somewhat of the times. There are less and less of those original greats. And it makes you begin to consider, right? And this is a different sentiment than what I was just sharing about the greatness of Willie Mays and all of his accomplishments and all the All-Star games and the multiple-time MVP and the World Series champion and all the gold gloves and everything that he did to cement himself as the greatest center fielder, maybe the greatest baseball player on planet Earth. Also, when you look at some of the guys that have passed recently, you realize that original greatness in baseball is kind of generational of the past. Will it ever be replaced? Will people stick up with the history? It's always been a sport, baseball has, that's been deeply, deeply rooted in its history. And recently, we've been witnessing changes that allow baseball to recognize more of its history, the allowing of Negro League statistics into the Major League record books, stuff like that going on. So when major marks happen, and normally they're deaths, unfortunately, it makes you think about how far the sport has come, where the sport is going, and how the sport is changing. And I think the thought process behind acknowledging Willie Mays' legacy also has sprinklings of that in there. So he never played in Philadelphia, right? He was never a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. It's not like he's an all-time great center fielder for the Phillies, and that's why we're talking about him on Locked On Phillies. But I think there will be very few, if any, baseball fans that know anything about Willie Mays that see that news yesterday and say, man, no reason to talk about that. Like, you have to mention it. And you have to give love to a guy that paved the path for so many people, so many African-American baseball players, so many outfielders that wanted to be Willie Mays, so many outfielders that couldn't be Willie Mays. All of that great stuff is credit to one man, and we're remembering his legacy today after we got the news yesterday that he had passed away. So I want to take the time on that to just go ahead and tip my cap one more time to Willie. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff like I told you about before the episode. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have some weekend episodes. I promise I'm going to make up to you the days that I missed while I was on the bachelor party, just timing where a lot of stuff happened, but we will continue to churn out episodes. I'm back now. Any other vacations planned that aren't centered around the Phillies? I'll actually be heading out to Arizona to watch them play the Diamondbacks in August, but they play the Diamondbacks Friday. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll talk about that Friday morning, and we'll talk about the Rojas stuff tomorrow. It's going to be a packed week still on Locked On Phillies, so stay with us, and I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.